You're listening to the Leaders of Transformation podcast, where difference makers and world changers come every day to be inspired, learn how to launch their initiative, and become a leader of transformation. Here's your host, transformational leader, speaker, and coach, Nicole Jansen.
Welcome back to another episode of Leaders of Transformation, the daily podcast for difference makers and world changers. I'm Nicole Jansen, and today we have Tiana Sanchez on the show with us here. Tiana is making a difference in the world of business, in the world of talent management, and helping people to perform better in their career. Tiana, glad to have you here today.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, Tiana and I met actually at an event where we both were speaking, and I was just so impressed by not only her passion, but the way she articulated what she does and how she does it and how she empowers people to be successful. And so I'm really excited to share her with you today. So I'm going to start off with a little bio on Tiana and give you some background, and we'll get right into it. Tiana Sanchez is a passionate professional development trainer and speaker, and she believes there is no limit to your success. She is the voice of modern-day professionals working in tandem with colleges and employers to foster a more confident and competent workforce in the new economy. At 17 years old, she was the youngest manager at her company and went on to be appointed by the CEO to the strategic planning team, which sparked her interest in organizational culture and established her as a skilled speaker. In 2001, she launched her own company and now, again, as I said, helps individuals build up their core competencies and helps them to perform better in their career. Again, Tiana, we're excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate it. It's interesting hearing your bio on the other end. It's like, wow, who is that person? She's done a lot.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, your bio, I only read a part of it. There's so much more I could have shared, and we can talk about that a little bit more as we go here, including that you have two books, one which is called Undefeatable. She's got a lot of great insight and experience in the world of performance management and so forth. And actually, I want to start off, Tiana, with asking you about your boxing gloves, because when you spoke, you had as a prop these boxing gloves on stage, and I know they're on your website, so they're a really important piece to your message. So tell us a little bit about those boxing gloves.
So the boxing gloves represent the undefeatable mindset, really an undefeatable spirit, which means I'm going to have failures in my life, but what I'm not going to do is become defeated by them. And so that's the platform that I use, and it's a reminder for me and as well as for my audience when they see those boxing gloves. You automatically think of a fighter, of a boxer, right? And what's the sole purpose of a boxer is to win. But at the end of the day, when two people enter the ring, one's going to walk out a winner and one's going to walk out a loser. And I use that word loosely, loser, because how that person moves forward after that loss will determine whether they're going to be defeated or they're going to look at this temporary setback as just that, a temporary setback, and not something that they can't overcome. And so the boxing gloves for me, again, represent the undefeatable spirit, represent something that I'm going to have failures in my life, but I'm not going to be overcome by them, and I'm not going to be defeated.
I love that. You know, that's the whole win-win concept of when you win, you can celebrate that, but when you lose, it's really learning. Right. What did you learn in the process? And when you learn something, did you not win? Yes, absolutely. You won something, and you can build upon it. That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, obviously, this is not something that is theory to you. You've had challenges, you've had defeats in your life that you have been able to build on, because you don't build a message like you have and share it with the passion that you have without having gone through some stuff. So right. Tell us a little bit about where you started and how you got to where you are today.
Well, one of the most pivotal moments that happened in my career, and you're right, we've all had these situations and circumstances in our lives that have shaped who we are. But a very pivotal moment, Nicole, in my career happened in 2011. I was working in the financial industry. I'd pretty much been working my entire career, as you mentioned in the opening, at 17 years old, had a management position, and pretty much throughout my career had a leadership role or some form of a management position where I was overseeing operations and managing people. And while in the financial industry, as we know, during the fall of the financial institutions and our recession back in 2007, 8, 9, my position was in jeopardy. And in 2011, I lost my job. I had never, ever, ever been let go or been fired from a job in my entire career. And so this was really shocking for me. I didn't really know what I was going to do. But in that moment, I had a decision to make. And I said, okay, am I going to go back into the 9-to-5 job, or should I take this as an opportunity? And so what happens, sometimes we see things that on the surface look bad or look wrong, and they just don't feel right. They're unfamiliar to us. Then we can look at that and say, okay, why me? Why is this happening to me? Or we can look at it as an opportunity. And so I decided to pursue a business, but I knew I was going to have to sit a little bit in an uncomfortable place. And so I call that sitting in my discomfort, right? So for a little bit of time, I had to take the time to launch and get my business started, but it wasn't easy. But that moment of losing my job really was critical for me because I had never, ever, ever been out of work. I had a family to feed. I was a wife. I still am a wife. And all of those things happened kind of within a matter of 90 days, and then I launched my business. So it was I don't regret it, but that was a huge point in my career and in my life that helped really shape this message of failure is inevitable, but defeat is optional.
Wow. 90 days to start your business. I mean, that's a quick turnaround from being able to process the loss of a job, especially when you have been successful for most of your life or all of your life, and to be able to turn it around and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, take action and make it happen. So what transpired through that 90 days? How did you do that? Because I know that I've worked with executives in transition, and a lot of them, what they're busy focusing on is, how do I get my old job back? How do I get back to where I was? And they spend so there must have been some mental discipline and things that you did that caused you to, in your philosophy, certainly your philosophy of life, that I'm sure that if we went further back into your life, was developed somewhere along the way in other defining moments.
To answer that question, I'm going to go back probably a year prior to me actually losing my job. So, and part of this story is in the book, and it's really kind of my biography or testimony. But a year prior, so in 2010, I had already started having this feeling in the workplace that I was at. It was becoming a toxic environment, and I knew that my time was up. I knew that I wasn't really going to be there much longer, but I didn't know what my exit strategy was. I didn't really know how that was going to happen. So I had started a year prior, started investigating different career paths online. I started looking around. I started looking into HR, human resources, because that was the place that I had worked in, I'd managed, and I'd done recruiting. And so I started looking at that. And then gradually I started looking at this whole idea of coaching. And coaching was really becoming this career path that I had never even heard about, but it was something that I did. And so a year before I actually got let go, I had started doing this investigating. So when I was let go, and that moment happened, it was shocking. It was unexpected. But I tell you, I went home that night and probably had the best sleep that I had had in months. It was a relief off of my shoulders. And so the next 90 days that followed that, and I don't know that I would encourage everyone to get started right off the bat, because there was a lot of learning that I had to do, and I was at a disadvantage because I had never owned a business before. And so I'm very ambitious. And so that could be my strength, and it could be a little bit of a weakness. But I was very ambitious, and I just went for it all in from what I knew and launched my business. Literally got the license, had the website up, started with a couple of clients that I had recruited through my circle immediately, to just kind of start these practices and methodologies. But literally within 90 days, that's what I did. And so the big piece for me was the funding, how to get your business funding. And so I had saved money. I had money saved. And so I did the good old-fashioned bootstrapping and had used my own income to kind of get some training that I needed, invested a few $1,000s in that, went to webinars, seminars, conferences, everything you can possibly think of. I went there and I intended to try to get as much knowledge as I possibly could. But literally at the end of those 90 days, I was an up and running business. But we know in business, you're really not established until you really start securing clients. And anybody can get one client, right? But it's about being consistent and getting multiple clients. And so that really started the rest of my journey, was how do I build now this business that I started to really make it a thriving business. But yep, within the first 90 days, that's what I did.
Well, and you bring up a point there were warning signs for you a year before. I think oftentimes we don't pay attention to those warning signs that says, hey, something's shifting. You mentioned that you were working in a toxic environment. It's those little things that say, hey, you know what, it may be time to go. And I think sometimes when we're not paying attention to those, that's when we get sideswiped. It's not actually that it's coming out of left field. If we look back, we could see that there was a pattern, there was something developing and brewing that if we were to pay attention, we could actually be more prepared for it. Not always, but sometimes I notice that is the case. So
right,
fantastic.
I agree.
And as I said, you mentioned about getting one client, getting multiple clients. You have created a tremendous amount of success in the last few years, and you're speaking all over the place and working with people that are looking to improve their performance. So tell us a little bit more about how you create transformation with people and in the workforce.
Yes, so because my background, and it's important to note for me, and I think for any of your listeners that are aspiring entrepreneurs or that own a thriving business, it's always important to do what you love, to really do, and we use this word passion. I like to say it's my mission in life. My mission in life is to really help people perform better in their lives, ultimately, because that will carry over in their professional life and their personal life. For me, my background has always been in management on the people side of the business, working with people, promoting people. I used to work at a little gourmet food restaurant. If any of your listeners are from California or from the States, hot dog on a stick was one of my very first jobs that I had. And I started there, and that's where I started managing at the age of 17 and learned a lot about the company. Fast forward, when I launched my business, one of my first clients was hot dog on a stick. And so that was a huge kind of a circle for me of seeing where I had come from to where I am now. And so what I like to say is I help people build up the key competencies that they need to perform better in their career. And I do that through trainer-led or leader-led workshops and competency-based learning. And so we call that the soft skills of learning. So there's technical hard skills, and then there's soft skills like critical thinking, problem solving, interpersonal skills, social intelligence, leadership. And so there's a ton, and the list goes on. And so what I do is I help to identify where's the biggest learning gap, what's the biggest need, how can you perform better. And so we all have areas in our life that we could develop more, and that's what I do. So I love working with companies. My sweet spot, my favorite spot of where I like to play is with managers, because that is really the core, I think, of who I am and what I've done all these years. So I really relate to those mid-level managers who are the link between top leadership and frontline staff. And so what I find through working with them, they not only are able to become better employees, there's an increased amount of motivation within them, the company sees results, and so it's a win-win all around.
Now,
right?
You mentioned something, you mentioned about the learning gap, the biggest learning gaps. You're always looking for that biggest learning gap. In your experience, what is commonly the learning gap that you see in, let's say, in managers?
You know, that's a good point. And I'll say it this way. One of the other areas that I work in that's actually a new space, and new in the sense of the last 2 years have started to develop, is I'm now developing relationships with colleges and universities that are building up the next workforce of potential workers and leaders. And what we've found is that there is a learning gap from what the employer, the company, wants in their workforce and their employees to what the students are actually learning academically. And so what we're now seeing is there is a gap, and we need to help narrow that gap. And so to answer your question, because I think there's some similarities to the learning gap of managers to what these new influx of workers coming into
it's on
the
both
workforce.
sides.
Yes,
yeah, there's
exactly.
a gap on both sides. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so what they're finding is there's a huge gap in these soft skills, right? So technical skills, you can teach someone how to fit A into this other place over here. But the soft skills are really what's lacking. There's so many statistics, Nicole, that show that this is a fact for employers. And so they're bringing in real world experts, people that occupy space in the business world. It's nice to have education, but it's also nice to have experience. I always like to say edX, and this applies to your managers, because I'm finding there's so many inexperienced managers becoming promoted, and they have not yet demonstrated the skills they need to be a manager or leader. They've been great as a customer service rep, or they've been great as a sales associate, but now I'm going to be a sales manager. That's an entirely different set of skills. And so these individuals are being promoted very quickly without the right or proper training. And so that's where individuals like me come in. And so the learning gap is primarily on these soft skills. And so I'm partnering not only with these companies, but with colleges to kind of help narrow that gap. And there was a study that I just read recently. I did a presentation for these companies, for the human resource directors at a conference. And the statistics show that in the next 5 years, so by 2020, there are 6 disruptive factors, such as the rise of the smart machines and our global connections, our global ties. And because of these disruptive factors, there's going to be 10 new skill sets that everyone is going to either be desired or required to have. And some of them include adaptive thinking. Some of them include cross-cultural competencies. And some of them include virtual collaboration. So again, if you think about all that, those are soft skills, right? And so This is within the next 20 years how we're shaping. So I'm glad that I'm in the midst, I'm kind of on the front lines, helping not only people that are already employed, those managers and frontline staff, but those individuals, those millennials, those young people that are actually going to be entering the workforce. So it is a transformation. It's moving from this idea over here to gathering these new skill sets over here. So ultimately, when I work with a person, I'm hoping to impact their personal life as well as their professional life through those training methods.
Well, and certainly soft skills does that, right? It's not like you can have these great set of skills that you use at work and then go home and not use them. I mean, it transfers over all, across relationships, across personal discipline and all of that. So those soft skills are so very important. And you're right. I mean, in school, what do we learn? We learn all these technical skills, but we don't get those very, very important soft skills that make all the difference.
Right.
And so what's interesting as you were talking, I was thinking about some of the listeners out there that might be looking at making a change in their life or wanting to go out and make a difference in the world in a fresh new way, or launch out on their own and have a business of their own. And I've worked with a lot, as I coach entrepreneurs and people that are pre-entrepreneurs and executives in transition on occasion, because they end up going into that entrepreneurial route a lot of times. And what I notice is a lot of them have a lot of experience, yet they don't really see it. They kind of take it for granted and think, well, I mean, what do I have to offer? I don't know what I could do. But when listening to you talk, and you have all this experience, certainly in training, but a lot of these people have some of that training, some or all of that training as well. And so it's like an encouragement to them to say, hey, you know what? You actually have some tremendous value that you can bring to the marketplace, some tremendous value that you can bring in being a consultant or being a coach. And I do believe that coaches and consultants need to work in their core competencies, and they need to work based not just on education, but based also on experience. But there's a lot of people out there that if we were to have them if they were to use their strengths and they were to use their skills and their experience and apply them in helping others, what a difference that would make. Like you talk about the millennials not having the soft skills. some of the people we think, oh, this is old hat. I mean, everybody knows this.
Right.
Doesn't everybody know relationship marketing? Doesn't everybody know how to build rapport and communicate with others effectively?
Right.
No, it's not being taught in the educational system right now. And so we need more people like you that are going out and teaching the things that are seemingly obvious perhaps to our generation, but that are not obvious. Or like you said, with the managers that are being promoted, people that are being promoted from customer service up to manager and having to develop a whole new set of skills to be able to make a difference and an impact in the people that they manage.
Right. It's important to know who you are, what you do, and the value that you bring. And if you occupy a certain space and that's your lane, you stay in that lane. And sometimes I think for new business owners and new entrepreneurs, we want to do everything. We want to be everything to everybody. And you have to be able to identify, well, what am I really good at and how can I monetize that? And how can I really help other people? So that's the bigger thing is there's a need out there. You have to find what that need is and fill it, and how your skills and your talents really can help you do that. And so I always look at it as who you are, what you do, and the value that you bring. When you identify that value, that's your kind of golden ticket. When you have a certain value or you're feeling a need that other people want or they need from you. And so, I kind of look at it. So we think everybody's seeing The Wizard of Oz, pretty much. I think everyone has seen The Wizard of Oz. And so I was looking at this story recently because I'm doing a presentation to some college students this weekend. And I said, I'm looking at the story of Wizard of Oz, and there's so much we can learn about entrepreneurship in the Wizard of Oz of what we really need. And I think about what did the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion have, right? The Scarecrow, brains. So that's your knowledge, your expertise, your experience that you need, your competencies, right? The Tin Man had heart, and that's your passion. That's your mission, what you are driven to do, what you enjoy doing, what makes your heart sing. And that's important when you start your business. And courage, right? The lion had or needed courage, and that's being able to take a risk, being able to go on the ledge and jump off. And I love the Les Brown quote where he says, just take a leap and grow your wings on the way down. And that's having courage, being able to be a risk taker, right? And so if we look at some of those just simple things that every one of us can identify with, I think it makes it a little bit more tangible to see, yeah, I really can do this. Yes, there's some things that I need to do to educate myself. Yes, I'm going to need some money. I need a whole bunch of things. But that's really a great starting place if you want to have that transformation in your business.
Excellent. Thank you. I love that. Brains, heart, and courage.
Yes.
It's so simple and yet so powerful.
Absolutely.
Now, what are some tips for our listeners? They're sitting there and saying, okay, I need to assess my value and know where my core competencies are. Where do they start? Because again, a lot of times these strengths that we have, these skills that we've developed are so automatic. They're the unconscious competence that they don't even know they have anymore because it's old hat.
Right.
How do you draw them out? Or give us some tips on how to draw those out.
So first thing to have is really thinking about your circle of influence. Who's in your circle already? Here's what I know. We don't get to any place on our own or by ourselves. And feedback is such a gift. And so one of the first things I would do is not just assessing my own talents and skills and abilities, but see how other people see me. And really what you're doing is you're assessing your brand. Everyone has a brand. And what better way to assess how other people see you and what you're known for is by asking feedback, asking people that are already in your circle, your friends, your family, people that you work with. If you could identify the three things that you think I'm really good at or how I help people best, what would that be? What would that look like? And that's a great starting place. And sometimes we don't always think to do that, but those individuals could potentially be your audience and your clients. So I would definitely say that would be a number one. A number two, invest in yourself. We spend a lot of time and energy and money on, and I dare I say the word frivolous things. I'm guilty of this too. But we spend a lot of time and money on things that may not be adding value to our life in the long run. And so I would say generally invest in your future. And that may be an investment of your time. That may be an investment of your money. And when we have to talk about money, giving away money, we don't do that so easily. But I'll tell you, anything good in this world was going to cost you. And so that's something to think about. When was the last time that you invested in yourself, in your professional development? And lastly, I'm going to say this. Look at your failures as opportunities. You're going to have failures in your life. You're going to have bumps in the road. You're going to try something, and guess what? It may not work out. You're going to try something again, and guess what? It may not happen again. There's so many people in our history, famous people, not so famous people, that can live and testify that failures are opportunities, and they actually are successes. And so I would say, look at your failures as opportunities because they teach you, they guide you, and ultimately they can help motivate you. And I would say those three things right there will be a good starting place for anyone who's really looking to do something different and kind of get unstuck from that place where they've been.
Nice. So number 1, ask others. Number 2, invest in yourself. And number 3, look at your failures as opportunities. Fantastic. Thank you, Tiana. And you mentioned about courage. Obviously, that takes courage to be able to do that, is to look at those failures and to be able to, some people don't like to, I don't know about you. Yeah. I don't like to focus on my failures.
Right.
It's like, let's go back and dig into that. Not really. But that's actually where our greatest insights and our greatest learning comes from.
Yep.
In fact, I believe that we learn much more from that than we ever learn from successes. I mean, when you're successful, it's just like, oh, that's, you don't need to debrief it and, dig into it and assess it. You just kind of roll with it.
Right.
But when it's something that didn't work the way you wanted to, that's where it's like, wow. I learned a debrief process from one of my mentors, which is very effective, is asking yourself, first of all, what worked about this?
Mm-hmm.
And then why? Why did it work? And then what didn't work about this and why? Not about what's right or wrong. It's not about you being right and somebody else being wrong, or somebody else being right and you being wrong, or you making mistakes, so much as it's just looking at it impersonally, if that's possible, and just saying what worked and what didn't work. And then what did you learn? And then what can you do differently next time, or what can you take from that to apply and improve your life and make a difference? And if it worked really well, of course, you could do more of it. And I expand that out just like you did by saying, hey, you know what? I've been successful at hot dog on a stick. I could go back and talk to them and build on that success,
right?
And build on that credibility that I have back there and help it launch my business, and which is what you did. And
right.
So, which is a little side note. I think it's funny that you worked at hot dog on a stick when you don't eat meat anymore, and you're
right. Hey, that was the all-American gourmet food place back in the day. It was very popular. And they have veggie dogs too. So.
Oh, they do? Oh,
they do.
Okay.
They do.
Oh.
Yes.
Nice.
But
thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say I agree with what you said. Most people see the now. When you see someone on TV or you see a celebrity, and I use that because everybody typically can identify or they have a favorite celebrity, but you see the now. You don't see, or you see the after. You don't see the before. A lot of times we don't get the privilege of seeing the before and what that person had to do to get to where they are. And those that are transparent enough to share their journey, that's the individuals that you want to learn from. I wasn't always as transparent. What helped me was when I lost my job. And the message in the book was written based off of that experience, from me losing my job, what was going on in the company, the failures that I had, and what I did. And that's just a little snippet, and there's more that could be said. But I absolutely think that everyone, if they really think about it, they've had some things that didn't go quite right, but they persevered through it. They learned something from it. But it is a part of reflection. No one sees the rejections that you get. No one sees the 10 no's that I got this morning before I, got out of bed if I'm, applying for certain things. But what they see is the now or the after. And so you have to think about that. Is everybody has a before, right? But hopefully they're not defeated till they get to the point where there's an after and they move forward.
Yes. In fact, yesterday I wrote a blog about the defining moments and how you find your why and your passion through those defining moments. And every great speaker, you're a phenomenal speaker, you have a turning point story, and the turning point is the before, the defining moment where you made a decision about how you were going to move forward and how you were going to apply that, whether that be in an empowering decision or whether that be a limiting decision. And then there's the after. And so everybody has the story. It's how you use the story to propel you and to fuel you forward. So, Tiana, thank you very much for sharing your story with us today. For the listeners out there, I would encourage you to check out Tiana's book, Undefeatable. She's got some great insights and great nuggets that I think would certainly benefit you on your journey. How do listeners reach you? What's your website, your Facebook, all that good stuff?
Yes, so anybody can reach me on my website, which is yoursuccess.com, yoursuccess.com. You can also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Tiana, Tiana _coach. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. I have a Facebook fan page. You can type in Tiana Sanchez. I don't think there's too many Tiana Sanchez's out there, so you can find me. You can also get a copy of the book Undefeatable on Amazon.com. It is available on Kindle. You can get it on your iPhone, your Android, and I believe it's about $6.99, something like that. And so those are the best ways to get a hold of me or to reach me.
Thank you again, Tiana, for coming on the show today and sharing your insights and your experience and encouraging our listeners. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure, Nicole. Thank you. And I do hope that the message today did inspire someone out there, even if it's just one person. I appreciate and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So we've had Tiana Sanchez on the show today. Check out her website and all the things that she's doing at yoursuccess.com, or check her out on Facebook, Twitter, and she is all over social media. And if you're looking for a speaker for your upcoming conference, Tiana is an excellent speaker. I can attest to that, and will do very well for you. Thanks again for tuning into the show, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Leaders of Transformation.
Thanks for listening. Head over to leadersoftransformation.com for full recaps of every show, our valuable resources, and our blog, all designed to support you in becoming the difference maker and world changer you were born to be. See you next time.